These are stories of outdoor adventure and expert advice from folks with calloused hands. I'm James Nash, and this is the Six Ranch Podcast. This episode of the Six Ranch Podcast is brought to you by Defend Security Cameras. Alrighty, folks, today I have a very special guest for you. Mr. Brent Oliver, who drove in from the very northern point of Oregon. And before we get started, I want you to understand that Brent has been through a lot, and he talks with a voice box. So I want you to hang in here long enough to start to hear his story and think about what he's had to overcome to be here. And you can compare that with what you might have to overcome to be able to understand this audio. But we're going to do our best, and this is going to be incredible. I'm glad you're here for it. Brent, so glad you're here. Thank you for coming. Do you feel like your life is separated into two sections of like before and after your wreck?
100%. You don't really understand the barriers until the barriers are in front of you. It is completely different. Yeah.
Well, let's start with you growing up. Your dad was into motorsports. You were into motorsports. What was your relationship like with motorcycles as a kid?
Just couldn't get enough of that. Growing up, we lived to ride motorcycles. Grandpa always kept a can of mixed gas right there by the back door, so we were never looking for gas. Spent our whole lives on the things, just freedom, just enjoying life.
And you're kind of the daredevil kid who was always trying to jump stuff, and your dad was into trials. Did you do the trial stuff as well?
I did as a youth. Did very well. Ended up going to college. I kind of stopped trials in high school a little bit. Bit through high school, got into college, and just got back into motorcycles right prior to the wreck, like 2-3 months. I just got back into it, bought a fairly well set up motorcycle from a friend of mine. That's where we got into this.
Tell me about the wreck. Do you remember the day before? I mean, it's documented, so that stuff can get a little confused about what you remember versus what other people have told you. But what was your experience like that day?
I remember unloading the motorcycle clearly and heading up the road, asking the lady that eventually would end up doing part of the two people that did CPR on me for a little over 2 hours. That I remember passing her and stopping at the camp of the other gentleman that did CPR on me for the 2 hours. And we visited their family friends, multi-generational family friends. I left their camp at approximately 25 minutes later, and the lady would pass me and came back down when she had passed their camp. Turned around up there somewhere and came back to tell them that there was an accident. And there was a young man that she didn't tell was unresponsive. So they jumped in the back of her pickup and went up, and I was laying there, and the family had stopped and visited. The father did that CPR on me for about an hour and a half before he realized it was me. I was completely blue when they found me and unresponsive, so I laid there for quite a while before the initial discovery, about 18 to 20 minutes, and then she had to leave me again to go get these folks, right? She had to make the decision to walk away from me and go get help. That's where the second 20-minute lapse came in, and then from there on they did CPR for about 2 hours. I had a severed trachea. I'd struck a cable on a motorcycle is what had happened, and severed my trachea and punctured my lungs, and yeah, it looked pretty good.
There's a documentary that's coming out about your life and your story. It's about so much more than that. But you were gracious enough to let me preview the state that the documentary is in right now. And, admittedly, I don't get choked up all that much in my life, but I sure did watching that. And when I was watching that woman describe the decision that she had to make when she found you, and you were basically taking your dying breaths, and she knew that she could just stay there with you while you died, and do her best, or she was going to have to leave you and go get help. And you're up here partially decapitated in the snow. And boy, when she talks about that decision to go get help, and the relief of, in hindsight, realizing that was the correct decision, I can imagine being in her shoes and the fear that she was going to go get the help from these strangers, come back up and find you dead. Right. I'm sure that's what was going through her mind. Yeah.
She was an ER nurse, retired from an ER. Lifetime career as an ER nurse. I heard her story prior to the interview that you saw.
Wow.
And this, I literally closed the chapter on this book of my life after the Reverend just went to work and put it all behind me. And hearing this for the first time from these folks and seeing the emotion in their face, and to hear that lady say that moment was her moment of honor through her entire life, and to be able to love her and tell her that the decision she made that day literally were going to affect millions of lives. For whatever decision she made allowed me to do what I feel like. And when you hear what I've done in my life was what I've been given, and hear the whole story, it's pretty remarkable. I never really heard it, because I lived it, and then I heard everything told back to me through this process, and it's pretty staggering.
It is incredible. But you died. I feel like that's worth talking about. And it's one of the greatest questions of life, is what happens when we die. And there's also a question of, well, is it really dying if you come back from it? That's a question for somebody else, or maybe for everybody. But medically, you died more than once, right? Tell me about that.
So through the process of this film, we started to do a lot of research and delve into survivability and likelihood and everything of what I've gone through, and got to find out nowhere could we find in literature that there'd ever been a paralleled event that I'm a singularity with everything that I've lived through. But there's a kind of touched on something. There's a couple different ways of dying. There's no oxygen, no RV, but your body lives for 3 minutes. Then your brain lives for 7 minutes. Well, that's what nobody can understand, is that I was without oxygen for a tremendous amount of time. Up to 20 minutes, 2 different times. And can't figure out why I'm still neurologically functioning. I've got about 30% of my spinal cord still alive. And I've done everything with that. But I'm a type back to the dying point in particular. I truly believe that God would not let you take what you've seen back to earth.
That's interesting. You've got 20 acres, and your security camera can see about 50 feet from your Wi-Fi router. Your gate, your barn, your equipment, all the places you actually need to monitor, they're exactly where your Wi-Fi doesn't reach. That's where Defend security cameras make a lot of sense. They work on cellular, just like your phone. But here's what's clever. They've got an embedded SIM card that automatically connects to the best network in your area. Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile. It finds whatever's strongest. No choosing providers, no contracts, no hassle. I'm using Defend cameras at my place. You mount it, open the Defend app on your phone, and you're done. 10 minutes. Clear footage, night vision, instant alerts, and here's something you need to know. Defend doesn't sell your data. Not to China, not to tech companies, not to anyone. They work for you, period. Defend your place.
I think that we have had no negativity at all. I was warm. Those are the feelings I could tell you that I can remember, but I don't. I think it's God. Let you have that memory that it did take the fight out of humanity. What'd be the point of being here? If it was that much better to be there.
And fight is something that you have a surplus of. All right. So my understanding is coming out of this, you are a quadriplegic, more or less, and you're not able to move your limbs, and the doctors are telling you that that's how life is going to be. Outside the studio, there's a file cabinet with my medical record from the Marine Corps, and my medical file weighs 22 pounds. And somewhere in there is one of the doctor's notes that told me that I would never be able to lift over 8 pounds ever again. And I found deep irony in that. And I keep it out there for that reason. But it's interesting how different people react to a doctor who's well-meaning, trying to tell you, what your capabilities are now going to be, right? They lean towards pessimism, but they're well-meaning and they want the best. Like they got into this because they want to help people. For me, the first time I started to hear that stuff, I was like, nope, that's not me. Like, don't tell me what I'm capable of. After 18 months of it and, medical appointments every single day, many of them, I started to believe them. And coming back out of that was a big challenge for me. Was there ever a point where you started to believe them, or did you just reject it from the beginning?
So that's really the funny part is in the movie my mom actually talks about that specific thing. It never even crossed my mind every single second that I would be doing the things that I wanted to be doing again. I couldn't walk. It was just white noise in the background. I can't explain it to you, but I never bought into it and never believed it. Not at all. I mean, like somebody speaking to you in a foreign language, like you didn't even understand what they were saying. I learned early on I've never taken pain medicine or swallowed pain pills or any of that. When they originally put me back together, they had me on a bunch of pain medicine. I ended up throwing up, and it ended up ending my ability to speak permanently forever. From that day on, I swore I'd never swallow another pill or take a shot or anything. So all the surgeries I've been through and everything, I've never relied on pain medicine for any of it. And I learned how to kind of meditate, believe it or not. And I can probably show you the exact spot in the ceiling in the hospital I was in for 6 months, staring at that spot. And I just learned how to control my pain. It's the craziest thing, because once I learned how to do that and my toe wiggled, I understood what needed to happen. And the connection. Once I repeated the toe wiggle, the first one was kind of a fluke. But once I repeated it, I mentally had made the connection on what it took to do that. And then I understood what I needed to do, and from then on it was just repeat that on different limbs until I became pretty functional.
How did it feel when So the first time is like a spasm. Your toes maybe wiggle on their own, and then the next time, like that's because you were trying to do it. How did that moment feel for you?
What light I just knew that I had a beat I cannot describe to you. And it wasn't a matter of being super positive or a matter of anything. I was very quiet. Didn't talk much. Obviously couldn't talk much. My throat was literally opened up for below height, yeah. Just about where your sternum connects here. It all had to heal from the inside out, so I had a gaping wound underneath my nose. 4 months. And I had to heal from the inside out. So what you saw in the movie was really, really downplayed how brutal this thing really was. And I think that it's in those really, really tough moments when the connection for that toe wiggling and those breakthroughs, it's almost like it's ingrained in you because you're hyper aware. Like I can't explain it to you in good terms, but you're at a place where you're ultra aware of what's going on in your body. At least I was. And the sensations and the hypersensitivity and the spasms and everything that came along with it. Once I decoded what all that meant over the years, then I started to get a really big understanding of the broad scope of what the whole thing was. I just learned to use all of those things as tools instead of detriments. And got to where I am today.
I've heard medical professionals describe the way you healed as through willpower. You talked about meditation. I want to hit on that just a little bit. Can you describe what your meditation looks like to be able to deal with, what would be overwhelming amount of pain for most people? Because you've gone through over 30 surgeries.
Yeah. Well, what I do personally is I find a spot to focus on. And once you learn how to let your mind drift, just let go. I mean, for me, I'm so good at it now that it's like a light switch. I can do it 2 minutes. When I stumbled across it, it took me 4 months of trying to figure it out. So I don't know if I could explain it to you in words. It might be have somebody that's a lot smarter than me might have to.
Yeah. So I think I understand. So it took 4 months before you got your toe to wiggle? And then how did you progress over the next 2 months that you were in that hospital bed?
Oh, I was in there a little longer, but I got moved back from the university hospital where I was after 4 or 5 months, and the local hospital where I was going to do inpatient rehab. And I stayed in there till the wound underneath my neck healed. Throat was better. And then I realized that they were trying to get me to accept life in my current situation. There was no progression. We want you to learn how to use this wheelchair as a tool. We want you to do, dip your hands in paraffin wax and color in a color book and all the stuff that they did back in the 90s for physical therapy that is a different game now. Right, technology and what they've got going now is light years from what I was, but literally I was coloring in color books, put puzzles together, and I do. If I did take control of the situation, then this was where I was going to be. So I played the game until they discharged me, and that's when I dropped out all the physical therapy and started doing my own, and living with my grandparents, eventually used the old step drag stumble rule technique to get out to my pickup, get the door open and figure out how to get it started. Drive around out there in the pasture until I wore the grass off the pasture. And prove to my granddad that I could drive, eventually. 5-6 months after being discharged. And from that point on, the world opened up. I was going up to the mountains. After elk season and deer season, I decided to try to gather the firewood the cameras had left. So it would take me hours to load a piece of firewood, but I'd find a way to back up to the bank or put a couple of sticks or something on the back of my pickup to where I could use my body to get behind a piece of firewood and work it up these sticks to get it in the back of my granddad's or back of my pickup. So a couple of weeks of this, I started, I come back with 3 or 4 pieces a day. Grandpa'd always ask how Paul Bunyan was doing, he always gave me a hard time about it. So 3-4 months later, I talked him into going down to the saw shop and buying me a chainsaw. Still a lot of talking. Yeah, complete quadriplegic, the good dog that we turned loose with a chainsaw. So I eventually won my battle. There was no cell phones back then, and that we could afford anyway. So I had a certain time I had to get the location that I was going to be at, and a certain time I had to be down by. And also, awesome mountain I'd go. And I bought a commercial firewood permit from the Forest Service. Just gonna go up and just cut a little firewood, see what I could do. And one thing led to another. Eventually got the saw started. I would take the pull cord of the chainsaw and slam it in the door of my Toyota pickup above the door latch. And then I learned that if I took a couple of rocks, I could fix those with the bottom of the chainsaw. And when I dropped the chainsaw, it would, the compression would almost pull itself over. So, weeks of fouling spark plugs and farting around, I finally got that saw to start. And took the rocks off, and that was all I did that day, was got the saw started. I couldn't cut anything. I was completely worn out. Got back down and didn't say Grandma asked how Paul Bunyan did. There wasn't any wood in the back of the pickup, but I knew tomorrow there would be. So, went back up, couple of days, could get my saw started again. 2 more days, could get it started. It was either the 3rd or 4th day, and I got it started. And I set myself up to be able to take the duct tape off of the rock that I had taped on with my pocket knife, so I could just take the saw when it started and go over my piece of wood. I could physically carry the saw, so I had to carry it, kind of crawl and carry it with one hand, kind of drag it over. And I got the saw up on my piece of wood and cut my first piece of firewood. But I was so exhausted at the end of the day that I had to leave the chainsaw behind the piece of wood that I was cutting, because I could physically, there's a 4 or 5 inch round piece of firewood at the top of the tree. But I was so tired I couldn't get that saw on the back of the pickup that day, so I actually left it up there for a couple of weeks. I'd start the saw and stash it in the trees because I could unload it.
And then how did that progress from, weeks of just trying to get your saw started to eventually, it sounds like you're cutting enough firewood for 45 or 50 homes.
Yeah, we stopped cutting. I almost had a running gait. I could almost run. I had about 75% of the use of the right side of my body and about 14 or 15 of the left. And was able to move in such a way that no one really knew how to say. I was able to carry myself in such a way that no one really knew how screwed up I really was. And the reason I've had the opportunities in life to do the things that I've done is because I ask that from the world. People judge. And when you walk into a situation, you're not 100%, you're a liability. That's a very, very hard hurdle to overcome. Especially, can't talk, and you're limited. So I had to do everything by proving my ability. Everything I did in life was because I proved I could do it. No one really ever gave me anything. I started as a truck driver on a ready mix business and then went up to where I finished, which is currently I get sold to the Department of War on military paving on runways at facilities on the West Coast. So I retired in 2011, but I was good enough at what I did that they still call me today.
Nice. Did you make it down to the World of Concrete convention?
Nope. My old employer and I talked about it every year, and every year we lined up to go. There was always a project or work-related something. We never did get to sitting down there, but it's on my list.
Yeah. It goes on at the same time as SHOT Show, and I was just down there for SHOT. But World of Concrete, it's a substantially bigger show. I think there's around 70, 80,000 people that come there for SHOT, and something like 120 or 130,000 people that come down for the World of Concrete convention. Pretty amazing. But, concrete is absolutely one of the most important inventions in human history.
It's endless possibilities, and it really is from antiquity to where we are today was that, unbelievable.
Yeah. What role did hunting play in your healing journey?
Mounts in general, holding on to the really special ways for me. Growing up, being a Gen X kid, all your friends, Easter Oregon, all your friends, bird up, deer up, fishing, big game, small game, predators. You just grow up in the environment, and all of my best traps come from that environment. Generally, the most morally and ethically grounded people that I can think of come from that environment. And I've lost my best friend, the friend I used to hunt with, passed away a few years back. And I decided to set some rules. So I booked on, and I got in the Safari Club International rule book. I decided my goal was to try to put a white-tailed deer, which is my favorite species, on, into the record book. That was my goal. I was going to take my buddy with me and cut some of his ashes, and he kind of goes with me on these things. So I practiced for 2 years with a 44 revolver, and got to where I was pretty proficient with it at 100 yards. Yeah. I became fine for that. So my wife and I headed towards Dakota, the Dragon Creek branch. I met Butch and his wife Deb and stayed there for a week and hunted hard every day. And on the very last day coming back, I saw something out the beet field kind of turn its head a little bit. And I wasn't quite sure what I had seen because it looked like a stump. It turned its head, it looked like a stump and moved out there. There was points everywhere. And I said, I'm not sure what I saw, but I'm pretty sure I saw something move out there in the bean field. So he had stopped, got up on my elevation point and looked, and he said, sure enough, that's a giant white-tailed bug rat. Can you shoot 100 yards? And I said, absolutely. So he got set up and waited about 15 minutes, and he stood up, and I ended up taking him, and it ended up breaking the Safari Club International North American Western Whitetail pistol record.
That's impressive. That's pretty cool. SCI is a cool organization. Yeah. But that's pretty incredible that that you got that record. How big was the deer? Just so I know, because I'm planning on shooting a bigger one to take your name off the list.
It scored 379 and 6/8, I believe, is what it is.
379 and 6/8. My goodness. That would be a monster elk.
It was a heck of a deal.
Yeah. What bullet were you using? Do you remember?
I can't remember now. XTB, I think it was. Maybe it was X. Like it was an XTB.
Very cool. Yeah. Yeah. I killed a bull elk here a few years ago with a semi-automatic 10 mil, and it really impressive bullet performance all the way around. I was using a G9 Defense Woodsman, and it's a 145 grain copper bullet, and it's shaped so that it has really good penetration, but also creates a big wound channel. And because it's lighter, then you got a lot less recoil. They're just a fantastic bullet. But what was interesting is I think that bull was at 35 or 40 yards, somewhere in that zone. And I was very confident out to, significantly farther on a range. I always try to limit myself more when I'm actually hunting. So the shot was great. It was a double lung shot, but that bull went 25 yards, laid down and died, just like that. The next day I was guiding a cow hunter, and we shot a cow, same exact shot placement, but it was with a 270 caliber bullet. It was going it was a 150 grain bullet that was going like 2,950 feet per second. And that cow went farther than my bull did. So it did make me rethink like the ethics of pistol hunting, because with all this stuff, like I want the animal to die as quickly and as painlessly as possible. That's just my ethics around it and stuff like that. So seeing that, like, yeah, this is equally ethical with the same shot placement as a rifle is, as long as you do it right. Pistol hunting can be just a heck of a lot of fun. Yeah. But 100-yard pistol shot really takes some doing.
I can show you the buckets of racks.
Yeah.
Thousands of rounds. I mean, I shot. Hands were sore from shooting 44 revolvers. I can promise you that.
Oh, no doubt. Did you have a scope on it?
Yeah, just a red dot.
Just a red dot. Yeah, that's what I was using too. Red dots are really fantastic, and a lot of times I can shoot a group that is smaller than my dot if I have it on a rifle. And I did it just the other day with this new Leshy PCP air rifle that I got. It's a 25 caliber air rifle. And this thing is so much fun. It's got a little 8-shot cylinder. It's semi-automatic. Throw it on an air compressor and you get 40, 50 shots out of it. But I was just sighting it in, and I wasn't in a comfortable position. I'd put this box out at 55 yards and, made a couple adjustments on the scope, clipped the top edge of my target, and made one more adjustment. And then I shot an 8-shot group that was half an inch at 55 yards. And my dot was bigger than half inch at 55 yards. I think it's a 2 MOA dot. And yeah, red dots are sweet. Yeah, they're slept on.
They are. At 100 yards, your red dot's about 6 inches.
Yeah.
So I know exactly what you're talking about, because I'm sub 6-inch group
Yeah.
at 100 yards with it. It's got to use your imagination a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we're putting the dot over the part of the target that we're trying to hit, and if you're zeroed well, then it's going to hit in the middle of your dot, right? It's okay. And if you adjust that brightness so that you can see through it just a little bit, oh, deadly. I like using a red dot with a magnifier too when I'm coyote hunting. So I've got the red dot that is 0 magnification for, those close shots when they just come screaming past you. And then if they're out there a little bit further, you can just slap the magnifier on there, and then you've got instant zoom. But anyways, enough about the nerdy stuff. What are some, looking back, what are some other accomplishments that you're really proud of? I mean, you became, a national level expert at pavement and at concrete. You regained your skills as a woodsman and were able to go out there and collect and sell firewood. You've got this world record achievement with a handgun, with whitetail hunting. But I know that motorsports, like, even though that was the thing that in many ways separated these two aspects of your life, it's still part of this chapter, big part of the chapter.
Absolutely. And that leads us into the entire next phase of what's going to go on. So once I got the diagnosis of 2018, the off-roading became the conduit in which I used to connect with people, family, it's everybody. I traveled from Southern California to British Columbia, or up in British Columbia. Met people for 5 years and looked for the best guys I could find off-roading in the snow, and then found quite a few of them, and they're actually part of the story and in the documentary. So off-roading has been pivotal in all of this. I was doing it before the accident, and then after the accident. It's the only thing I can still do that keeps me grounded, that my injury doesn't affect, other than the fact that I can't talk. I could drive with the same ability that I drove when before the wreck. That's really important to me. I don't know how to put that in words. It's the last thing I can do, that I'm connected to my old life. Does that make sense?
It does. Wanting to have some continuity between those two things. You learned how to ride a motorcycle again.
Oh, yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah. That's news to the world, because nobody knew it was me. I all blacked out of gear that nobody knows it's me, and nobody knows it's me. I realized I was going to get caught by my family at some point when I pulled up next to the stoplight, and my mom and dad were right beside me at the stoplight. I looked right at them, and they had no clue it was me. That's always been a bit of comedy for me, is that I hide that from the world, but I still ride and not so much anymore, but I did ride a lot of motorcycles after the wreck.
Yeah. Yeah. Riding a motorcycle is a great experience most of the time. There's some interesting studies around motorcycles for treating PTSD and traumatic brain injuries. And a couple of things that it does, just to summarize my basic understanding of this, is with PTSD and traumatic brain injuries, a lot of times you've damaged your brain's ability to control stress hormones like cortisol, as well as your dopamine, epinephrine, things like that. And you get like big spikes and valleys of those hormones in your body. When you're on a motorcycle, you have to focus, and it's very intense. But that adrenaline needs to get adrenaline and the things that are associated with it, the other hormones. It needs to get spread out over a long period of time, so your body learns to regulate that a little bit better. There's also some evidence that the physical vibrations from being on a motorcycle are helpful for that recovery as well. When I got that KTM out there that you noticed when you walked into the shop, I had very, very little motorcycle riding experience. And dude, I tipped that thing over so many times. It's a tall bike. It's heavy. The first time I rode it, I tipped it over because I'd only ever ridden like little dirt bikes that you could just hop off of. I didn't know that you needed to put the kickstand down first. And, I rode up to my buddies who were motorcycle dudes, and I tried to hop off, and the bike falls over on top of me. And I'm like, oh gosh. But yeah, dude, I just dropped that thing so many times. And the more I learned it, the more I felt like I just don't want to get off of this thing. And I started taking longer and longer trips. And then, I didn't have very much money to build my business with. And it was such a cheap way to travel. Right. And inevitably, when you're traveling with a motorcycle, something kind of cool happens. I used to bring like a little camping setup. I was like, yeah, I can pull over anywhere and camp. But what I found was that I was never using this because everywhere I ended up, there was hospitality. Like that's just something that goes along with motorcycle travel. Like you end up around friends and new friends, and like there's a spare bedroom or a couch. And I mean, of all of the motorcycle travel that I've done, which is fairly extensive, the number of times that I've actually had to sleep on the ground is like less than 10. It's crazy.
It is. I think it's so peaceful because it takes so much of your concentration. You're involved in the world and what's going on around you. We're driving in a pickup, we're driving at something with a cap, we're thinking about the day, and we're thinking about what we've got to do, and we're not living in the moment. I think with that wind blowing on you,
yeah, you're smelling everything. You're feeling these micro changes in temperature as you drop down into draws and climb ridges. You're just hyper aware of your environment around you. It was a really lovely time of my life when I was riding that bike a lot. And I don't do it much anymore. But I do miss it. And yeah, I still haven't sold that thing because it did a lot for me. Yeah, I feel like I owe that machine something.
in the back of my shop, there's a couple of tarps. Don't go look under those tarps. They may or may not be two-wheel items. So they're back in my shop.
Yeah. When did you get into Land Cruisers?
So I've always been a kind of a Toyota guy. Everybody always had Fords, Jeeps, Chevys, full-size stuff, four-wheeling in the late 80s and early 90s. I started out with a 1980 Toyota pickup and really just never got away from it. We do own a Jeep. We live on a 2004, but my FJ40's always been my primary wheeler. We bought that in 2005, I think it was, when I bought that, and then I slowly started rebuilding it into what it is today. This spring, I'm going to use that vehicle to possibly break 3 world records as we go to Mosquito Pass in Colorado. Try to set some world records.
Good. I feel like you need a few more world records.
Yeah, we've
What year is your FJ40?
78.
78. So I have an HZJ 75, 75 series that I imported from Australia.
So it's got the ARVs, it's got the Dana 60s underneath of it, or the ARVs on it, isn't that model?
So it's a single cab flatbed. I actually don't know. I don't think it's ARB. I think it's pretty original underneath. I am kicking around the idea of doing an LS swap on it. I sent an email to like Land Cruisers Northwest, like an outfit over in Portland. You might be familiar with them, just to see what it would take to actually put like a 5.3 in it or something. But it has the 1FZ-FE engine. It's a inline 6-cylinder 4.5 liter gas engine, and it's a good little engine. It really is. Not super efficient, not crazy fun on the highway, but really good on going slow and dirt roads. And it's a reliable engine that'll last a long time. I've seen Land Cruisers 75 series in particular that have been badly abused in Australia and Africa that have over 300,000, 400,000 miles on them with this engine in it.
They literally, that might be the only thing that survives a nuclear attack is a cockroach in a Toyota FJ. Seriously, you go to third world countries or Africa or Australia and you see some old FJ that doesn't even have seats in it anymore. There's a bunch of dudes smiling ear to ear driving that thing across the desert.
Yeah, and still like they're treated rough and they just keep going. Mine's right-hand drive manual, which is really cool until you have to go through a drive-through in America. So like the coffee stands and the banks don't really like me because I'm either going the wrong way or backwards. But no, it's fun. Tyson Samples from Fusion Fabrication and Welding down here in Enterprise, he's been helping me over the last about 8 months make a custom flatbed for it, and we're about a week away from being done with that. And that'll be a bit of a reveal that I'll do on Instagram to show everybody what I've done with all that. But pretty cool, and it's a very nostalgic truck for me, and I have been so amazed at what I've seen Land Cruisers do Tell me about what you're doing with yours, because that's quite specialized.
So mine is LS powered. It's got a 4L65E 4-speed automatic in it and a 4-speed Atlas transfer case. It's rear steer. It's on a 49-inch inner dry rod tire, and it primarily just for snow. I really, really enjoy the snow because I can go out there, enjoy my day, drive where I want to drive, never touch the environment, never touch soil, never touch anything. When the spring comes, those tracks melt out. Go hard, melt out.
With those big 40-inch tires, I know that the tire pressure is huge and something that requires adjustment based off of the snow conditions. What advice can you give to people who are out in the snow, maybe without something quite so specialized, but what are you doing with tire pressure, and how important is that to you in your snow wheeling?
It's everything. Tire pressure. It's the point of contact between the vehicle and the ground. So the harder the tire is, the more it wants to push through a soft material. The lower the tire pressure in the tire, the more it will roll over and float over the material. So without a bead lock or something to mechanically lock the wheel and tire together, a lot of guys will let up down to 3 to 5 pounds on a Toyota pickup.
Without a bead lock?
Without a bead lock.
Wow.
And run around. I mean, it's not a high-speed thing at that point. It's, crawl gears, a range, but that slip ring will do a lot for you.
I've heard as a rule of thumb that your speed can basically double your foot-pounds of tire pressure. So if you say you air down to 15 pounds, like don't go over 30 miles an hour. Is that accurate or is that myth?
I don't know. I never really looked into that. I'm mechanically locked on with all my vehicles, so I got a rip.
You've got bead locks on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once you get over 600 horsepower, it's not fun to go slow.
Are you pushing 600 horsepower?
Yep. Right at 600.
Does it have turbos?
Nope.
Wow.
Naturally aspirated.
Wow. That's amazing.
I got a really, really good engine builder. He's the 2024 NHRA World Pro Log Champion, Brody Lazick.
Nice.
Super, super good dude.
Nice.
Gen 3 speed.
What about suspension? How important is that to you?
For the snow.
Yeah.
The patent on my suspension was developed in 1803. It's a leaf spring.
Yeah.
I run leaf springs. It's completely predictable. Does the same thing every time. I don't have a need to go really fast, and my trail speed's 30, 35 miles an hour. I'm comfortable with that. I'm happy with that. Fine, in the snow, I don't need to go any faster. But what it allows me to do on a hillside or a slope, you'll be able to watch spring when we break those world records.
Are they parabolic leafs? No.
Standard, just a standard old leaf spring.
Yeah.
In fact, that's a 1.5-inch lift kit out of a old man leaf string is what's underneath the front of that.
Nice. I've got some heavy duty old man emus in the back of the truck. I put a gull wing canopy on it as well on top of this flatbed, which I love that style. Like that gull wing style with a flatbed it's crazy to me that that's not more popular in America, because it is the way to do it. But if I load this thing down, if I'm hauling elk or something like that, I wanted some extra there. And then in the front, I've got some parabolics, and I can't remember who made those. It was an African company, but they're thicker leaves and they don't touch, so you don't get any friction between them. And it did smooth out the ride, and it leveled the truck out a bit, which was also nice. it had a steel bed on it before when I got it. And even with this custom, really cool bed that we built and the canopy, we're still sitting quite a bit higher than we were with that steel bed. Saved a ton of weight by going to aluminum. Yeah. Hopefully not too much. We'll see how it does when, if it ever snows again. For a snow wheeling guy, this has got to be a pretty depressing winter for you.
Literally drove out over 204 at the solid sign on toll gate this morning with my tape measure and physically measured 50 feet off the road, 3 inches of snow.
3 inches.
3 inches.
That's not enough.
That's a rough year.
Yeah. Wild year. And you know, it was fairly warm. It got cold enough, but we just didn't get the snow. We're looking at 58 degrees next week. I don't know what's going on. Is winter over? Can we call it?
I'm pretty dang close.
Yeah. It's strange. So tell me a little bit more about what you're trying to do at Mosquito Pass, and what are the snow conditions down there right now, and how is that affecting you? I'm sure you're mapping that out right now.
It's clean like it is here. There is fucking any snow. Some of the people involved in the process have some drones, so they went up there and kind of flew the pass, looked at it for me, and the road's blown in pretty good. There's just not a lot of snow. So the world record attempt is going to go forward, but I don't know.
And what is this world record?
It is there's actually 3 of them, and the highest altitude reached by a disabled driver, highest winter ascent, solo winter and assisted winter ascent of over 30,000 feet. And the last one I tried a bike on.
Yeah.
It has to do with altitude, or just maybe it's the first person beak over that particular pass and the snow unassisted. I think it's what it was. First person to.
Did you ever read David and Goliath by Malcolm Gladwell? It's an interesting book, and he talks about disability in there, and breaks down some of the myth of disability, which I find endlessly interesting. And the title example, which he goes through many examples, but the title example of David versus Goliath is we treat this like it's a miracle. When if you look at it from a little bit different perspective, you say, okay, we've got a giant, right? This guy's undefeated in battle. Everybody's scared of him. And then you've got David, who's a shepherd, and nobody's really scared of him. But the giant has a spear, and spear can't go very far. David has been taking care of sheep in country that's got lions, and he's literally killed lions with this sling. Like, he's been protecting stuff for a long time, and shepherds end up with a lot of time on their hands, and they all learn how to throw rocks. That's just part of what a shepherd does. So he has a weapon that can fire accurately, lethally from a lot farther away. So if you break it down in a different way, what we think of as a disability is actually an advantage, right? When this comes to you, do you think that this wreck that killed you, that you then survived and miraculously healed from, would you have accomplished as much in your life had you not had that wreck?
No.
Do you think it's to your advantage?
It taught me you truly don't know the limits you could push past until the limits are in front of you. You don't know what you're capable of. Everybody can say, oh, I can do this, or I can beat that, or if I was in your shoes, I'd make it happen. But until that obstacle's in front of you, you don't know.
Do you think people imagine their own limitations? And what do you have to say to people who believe that they're limited and are not?
they're stuck in a victim mind frame. It's a victim mentality. It's a completely different when you're looking for the reason instead of the reason, instead of the solution.
Yeah.
You're not setting yourself up for progression. Struggles in life are what got me to where I'm at. It wasn't the good times. It's the hard times that forge me. It's put a knife in the fire and you heat it up and you beat on it and you work that piece of metal. But you have long enough, it comes out sharp, hard, and ready for battle. Ready for the world. Same thing with a disabled person with the right attitude. You can be a victim and you can sit there on the couch and take disability or come up with a reason that you need this and that. Or you can rise in a room. You know, I make it a point never to be in a room where I've got to lower myself to be in that room. I always try to walk into a room where I've got to reach up, where everybody in the room is better than me, because it gives me something to work towards. I'm nothing. I'm a guy that lives in Belton Free Water, Oregon. Had a run of bad luck and is just too stubborn to give up. What's left inside of me is locked in everybody that greets. We're all born. We all take that first breath. And when we die, we give that last breath back. It's all the crap that goes in your head between that point, starting point and the end point, that's the problem. And I think that if we focused a little less on our victim thoughts and just a little more on that, lifted somebody up, I think that this, just the mighty changelings have set the course to a new path.
There's a moment in the film that I wanted to ask you about because it was horrifying to watch, and it also felt very pivotal, like a real changing point. And that was when that nurse tried to kill you. That was freaking crazy.
That moment. After that day, I never thought about it again. Till somebody asked me about it 33 years later.
So what happened there?
She'd come in and been fairly brutal for about 3 or 4 days. She was a night nurse. She was a charge nurse on that floor. She come in and suctioned me, and I had a trachea tube, a fixture, top of my chest where I was breathing through. And there was an oxygen tube that was treated air, moist air, and that was going into that. Every so often they would come in and suction everything out to clear it out. She would come in and ramp the suction tube past the trachea tube and my lung and my bronchial tubes and really, really hurt. And I asked her, please be gentle. And when she leaned down and said what she said, did what she did. I don't want to give too much away for the movie, but
yeah. But there's a moment there where it feels like you're really fighting for your life. Yeah. Do you feel like that was like, did that give you some extra fire though to like really start that fight, or were you just in it at that point?
That was the moment that I realized what I was capable of. It's as she destroyed what was left of the room and did what she did. I was scared because I didn't know what this woman was going to do next. But I knew I was in control what was going on with me. I knew that it was survivable. I wasn't freaking out. I remember I was calm, but I was scared because I just didn't know if this lady was going to come at me again or not.
Yeah.
And I couldn't speak. I couldn't hit a nurse's button. I couldn't do anything because I was in league flawed with the ability to speak. So I was Azure, yeah,
right?
until okay, and attack. No, that wasn't the first time that wasn't the last time that had happened, and it happened 2 other times that I've not mentioned. Different hospital.
Wow.
Yeah, it's what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, as they say.
I did a show last summer with Dale Story. You know him? Really, really excellent show. Dale was a high school teacher in Wallowa, right? But when he was a little kid, he got polio and was paralyzed from the neck down for about 9 months. And he talked about being really scared when his mom would like drag him down the hallway to give him a bath, because if she just let him go, there was nothing he could do, like just totally helpless. Dale came out of that and was really diminished in size, similar to what you went through, and tried to go out for high school cross country, and the coach wouldn't let him because he was too little. And he just bullied his way into it, ended up like second out of thousands. And just a few years after being, quadriplegic with polio, he set a new record in the mile. And, later went on to win the first national championship for Oregon State University in any sport, which was the 5,000 meter run. And I think it was in Minnesota or Michigan. It was 30 degrees, and he ran it barefoot. That's the question. Probably not. But, he had that fight. And just a tremendous guy. Also another incredible hunter, right? This is just I tell people all the time that there's something special about Eastern Oregon and the people that come from here. And Dale grew up in Southern California, but he ended up moving here and living here for most of his life. That there is a fight in people here that lets them do amazing things. And I think that it is our community, what we expect of each other, and the terrain itself that shapes the people here and lets them do amazing and significant things.
So I'm not a big dogger. I'm a very, very, very quiet person, but I pay very close attention. And that really struck with me. I'm sorry, it got me a little bit off of my game, but you just don't understand what's locked inside of them, and it's not so much a regional area. What I will say about Northeastern Oregon in particular is, and call it what you want, I call it love. If you go into the parts store, go into the convenience store, go into anywhere in your little town, and somebody knows that you've had something, or you're part of something, there's a tragedy in your life, how many of those people go out there and physically put a hand on you and tell you, it's going to be okay, you got this, we're here for you?
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing, is humanity's been pulled out of humanity, and we don't take the time we need. And that's what's going on with accessibility and what we're talking about with the Forest Service. I had to get off on another topic, but the Forest Service and the Jubilee Lake Initiative is that they just don't realize over decades some involves out of disrepair that what was meant to be all-inclusive is now a hazardous barrier. And I just don't know.
I do, and this has been one of my primary arguments for many years regarding travel management on public land. And anytime they talk about wanting to close roads, I can think of it from a few different perspectives. Like infrastructure tends not to come back. And we need that accessibility for people who need roads to be able to get places and need vehicles to be able to get places.
Meaningful access is what it boils down to. It. And where I'm coming at this from this standpoint is because it benefits everybody, but from a senior citizen standpoint or a disabled standpoint, when we put gates up and have closures in areas and there's a shoulder season where there's no snow in an area where you can access around that gate if you're an able-bodied person and go fishing or access the bathroom and go down there with your family and enjoy the day. Well, that gate might be 3,000 feet away from up a 4% slope, like the particular gate I'm talking about at Jubilee Lake. And on those shoulder seasons, it doesn't allow meaningful access for the elderly and disabled because you can't have a guy with a walker walking 3,000 feet down a 4% grade or back up a 3% grade to do the same thing that an able-bodied person can. So we've been working with the local Oregon government, and we've been working with the Forest Service, and we got permissions next fall to do a test pilot project, and we're looking to get private sector involved in redoing the trail system at Jubilee Lake.
Good.
To where it's usable and meaningful access for everybody like it was intended. So we're in a pilot project to do that now. So what you were talking about earlier kind of wiggle its way after this.
Yeah. No, I'm all about it. Oregon still doesn't allow hunting with crossbows under any conditions. And I guided a gentleman on an elk hunt a few years ago that would have preferred to hunt during archery season, but while he was in the Navy, got blown up and he lost one arm above the elbow and both legs above the knees. Now he's got fantastic prosthetics. He's got a great attitude. He's in really good shape. He can do one-arm pull-ups like nobody's business. Look that guy in the eye and say, you're not allowed to use a crossbow.
This is my point exactly.
I dare you. But that is exactly what the regulations here in this state do. Now, I don't hunt with a crossbow. I don't own a crossbow. But if somebody else wants to use one, that affects my hunting experience, not in the slightest. And I don't have it in me to be elitist about physical ability and say, you can't do this. Like if you are disabled, if you are injured, if you are old and you want to go out and hunt with a crossbow, you should be able to do that. That is not going to affect anybody else's experience. But what it gives to that individual is massive. It's massive.
It's healing. That's healing. You talked about healing. What do the pouts do for you? Well, that's exactly what it does for you. It heals you. Like my biggest, one of my bigger pet peeves is the wilderness accessibility, because there's technology and tools today, exoskeletons and things that paraplegics can now use to walk on that stuff. You know, there's mobility aids where people can use to access this stuff. Legally, I don't even think I can use my donker in a wilderness area because it's a mechanical device.
That's crazy.
So I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the way it reads. But as far as mobility aids go, there's so much new technology which would give access, meaningful access to people. It could change their lives. If a person has a trip, like down to the end, or one of these trails where they're going to go fishing, and it's that thing that they look forward to all year, that is what gets a person out of bed every day. Sometimes it's the smallest goal, but there's so much when you're a paraplegic or quadriplegic or mobility limited, there's so much value in that weekend. You get to go be part of something that your friends get to enjoy every day, but you get to be there with them. And take that away from people. Everybody worries about suicide rates, all these other problems, and the accessibility and equality is what needs to happen.
Yeah. We want to be able to shoot, move, and communicate. Yeah. These are important things. You mentioned your diagnosis in 2018. You want to tell me about that?
So, essentially, to put it into understandable terms, when my neck was broken at an ionized level, it's affected my sympathetic nervous system. The cord itself is damaged to where I only had about 30% of it that lived after the initial injury. It's pretty booted up in there. And the diagnosis is it's kind of like a post-polio disorder. So they noticed that in their 60s and 70s, people that had polio, they started to have these symptoms again and started to notice things were losing the ability, things were disappearing. I got to find out that, like your brain cells, your spinal cord cells die as well. Well, when you're, good Lord made you, but about 30 to 40% redundancy in your cord. So when something gets damaged, it reroutes. That's like 50. You're not as quick as you were when you're 20 because something's rerouted, right? You're staged out. Things are slowing down a little bit. The mine's damaged enough that there's only 30%, so our parts die. It's significant. And it's really affecting my sympathetic nervous system. So what it is, my time to go be with my son, I'll probably just fall asleep. I wake up or pretty simple deal they tell me.
And is this the type of deal where you know how much time you've got?
Nope.
You just know that it's going to kill you.
Yep.
How do you sit with that?
I'm good.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been told I'm going to be dead or dying 15 years old times. You need to get your affairs in order. This is it. Blah, blah, blah. After a while, you know it's going to happen eventually, but the last time he came to visit, I kicked the crap out of the Grim Reaper pretty bad. I don't think he wants another handful of that, though I slow down a little more.
Yeah, good. Now, you've talked about not identifying as a victim. I don't feel like you identify as disabled. That's just probably more so a product of what other people are putting on you. And it's not the way I see you at all. You're a more capable person than most people that I meet. And that capability has been harder earned for you, but you've done it. I believe that because of that approach to your life, that you've looked rather to find ways to help other people than to get help for yourself.
So that's one thing that I'm not. I'm an unbelievably quiet person, but my long game is really good. So everything I do has a ripple effect down the road. So I've set this up to where my name and likeness or anything to do with my vehicle through the documentary World Record Attempt, any funds that are raised, all go to charity.
And what is the charity?
It's the Brent Oliver 541 Foundation. And it's designed to help people that have had catastrophic injuries, regain freedom to re-engage in life after something catastrophic. We helped the young 16-year-old boy this year. Broke his neck on a trampoline. We remodel his house. Help advocate to get into the Craig Hospital in Colorado, which is one of the best neurotrauma hospitals in the nation. We helped another young man that just broke his neck in December get to Craig Hospital. And he's currently there remodeling the house. Broke entryway and some other stuff for him right now. Given a couple of mobility aids, track chairs. one to a local guy in Pendleton, and then one to a 15-year-old boy in Canada. That spinal bifida really bad, and that completely changed his life. The night I met him for the first time, I watched him walk under 200 feet from where they parked to a campfire, and it took him 22 minutes to walk that distance on crutches. And I was 5 pack the years old, and I watched him knowing that his track chair was behind the locked door 50 feet away from him. They didn't know it was there yet. And the day that I gave it to him, I had to leave a little bit early at the event that we filmed it in. Put 7 miles on that track chair that night.
Nice.
And it was just in a shop. You know?
Yeah.
So that kind of a thing is life-changing.
Yeah.
We've helped build some disabled dying blinds for another charity out of Belgium that gets disabled veterans back outdoors and try to really spread it around. We're about making a difference, not an excuse.
I like that. I love that. Make a difference, not an excuse. Yeah. Well, and as you do this, those people that you help are going to find ways to help other people in return, right? This is how it builds.
This is the beauty of it. When you cast a stone in the pond, you never know where the ripples are going to go. One of the people that I might help might go on to help hundreds of people. I mean, you just never know. But I do know every life we've touched, we've changed. And I still keep in contact with the people that we've helped. And it's just about being there, man. Life is not hard. It is a simple deal. You have to show up. Well, you gotta show empathy and compassion. You gotta know how to love your neighbor. And honestly, Proverbs 3:27, if you have the ability to help someone, you should absolutely do so. It's that simple.
Yeah, I believe in that too. That I've talked about this many times before, but it had such a big impact on me that I'll continue to. When I was in officer candidate school in the Marine Corps, they talked to us about this French notion called noblesse oblige, and it basically died at the Battle of Agincourt, I think in the 1400s. But this is when wars were fought by nobility, and it means nobility obligates. It means that if you are a noble person, you are obligated to take up arms to go fight for your country. I take that to mean closer to what you said, where if you're capable, you're obligated. If you can help somebody, you need to. If you can't, then you need to figure out how to get to a place where you can. So let me ask you this, and I have a feeling I know what the answer to the question is going to be, but what type of support could you benefit from in your world record attempts that are coming up?
Title sponsorships. We're really looking to turn this into a second talk to explain more about the story and explain more about what's possible. There's other events lined up after this. We're looking at possibly going to Iceland on another world record attempt there and another world record attempt in Alaska. There's a lot on the table that...
Can you talk about when the attempt is going to occur?
This will be this May.
In May.
Yep, the MISO in a Perfect World, my anniversary rec, 35th year rec. My anniversary is May 19th.
Okay.
And I like to be standing at the top of that thing at 11:20, May 19th, 35 years to the minute after that happened. But with the weather up there, it's just completely weather permitting. My ultimate goals would do it that date, but it'd probably be closer to June.
Yeah. With doing it solo, that means there's a good chance that you are going to get stuck along the way and that you're going to have to self-recover. That I know you've got experience with that. Is that one of the biggest challenges, or what do you foresee as like one of the biggest challenges coming up for this?
There is such a small percentage of people that have had lung injury that are not completely ventilator dependent. the fact that I am alive 35 years later, they cannot explain it. That's an anomaly. I should not be able to go up there and do what I'm about to do. Should do it. A botsy hit or something. Fluid in your lungs should absolutely dig me out. So, me being me, last June, I loaded my rig on the trailer and I headed to Colorado. And I went up there and I drove the pass. I stopped short of the summit by 185 feet. Because I didn't want to summit and not do it on film. So I turned around and came back down. And the next day I checked into the hospital, the Craig Hospital. I was there for a legal evaluation. And to say they were shocked, surprised when I told the respiratory therapist what I had done. Their eyeballs about fell out of their head. And no ill effects. I went up there and did it. And I was fine. It was rough on me. I mean, I had some side effects later on, but it was completely doable. I'm going to prove to the world it can be done.
Are you going to bring oxygen with you?
Debatable.
Yeah.
Yep. Oxygen does a lot for a guy with a drain that's not good because it dries everything out, causes some bleeding. So that can cause problems sometimes, but not.
Okay.
So if I can do it without it, I'm going to try to do it without it.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen just little aerosol cans of oxygen that aren't a super heavy mix either. And I've seen guys use those at elevation hunters and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm certainly not an expert at any of that. Look forward to seeing you. Look forward to seeing a picture of you on top. Where can people follow along in this journey? How can they support the Brent Oliver 541 Foundation? When can they expect to be able to watch this documentary?
So the documentary is close. I don't have a finished date on that. We're just in the final. You saw a rough copy, which is 80% done, 85% done. So we're probably a little ways out yet from the doc. I would follow BrentOliver541.org, which is the website. We're a 501c3 organization. If you have any interest in anything, you can reach out at info@BrentOliver541.org. Ask me personally any questions. Those emails come to me directly. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Facebook. Brent Oliver, BrentOliver541. They're both certified accounts, so if there's no blue dot, that's not me. We're just happy to share the story. I'm a unbelievably huge introvert, but first time I've ever publicly spoken like this, so I hope I didn't not do bad.
You did great. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I'm so glad you're able to come over here, and the fact that you drove over here by yourself and rolled up in a full size pickup, I was like, damn, this guy's getting after it.
Well, this winter, if I don't allow screaming in the vehicle, but this winter, if you want to go for a ride, you're more than welcome to sit the passage you see.
That sounds good. Well, when I finally get my little Land Cruiser done, I'll drive over there and we can look at it and poke it and talk about ways to make it better.
That sounds like a good plan.
Ways to spend some more money on it.
That's what friends are for. They're there to spend your money.
All right, brother. Well, I appreciate you a lot. Folks, I'm going to put some links in the podcast description here so that you can follow along and that you can support Brent's foundation if you feel compelled to do that. But more than anything, I hope that you just you really take to heart some of the things that this man said here today, because there's lessons here for all of us to learn.
Thanks for your time.
Bye, everybody. Thank you to everyone who has taken the time out of their busy lives to write a review for the show and share it with their friends. I'm extremely proud of how intelligent, engaged, and adventurous this audience is. Original music for the Six Ranch podcast is written and performed by Justin Hay. Art for the Six Ranch podcast was created by John Chatelain and digitized by Celia Harlander. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week.